Lawson. I'm also called Gem Aaron. Well, like my moderator properly introduced, we're going to start with one of the key topics that is very important to all students and all learners watching us live on Facebook. Our prime focus today is we're going to look at effective learning skills, and I'll do my best within the time frame to look at some of the strategies that you can adopt or practice at home that will help you to enhance your learning. So we're going to share some few statements of facts which I think is very relevant. I want you to ponder over them and take them as part of your objectives. First of all, learning is your personal responsibility. It is your personal responsibility. Just take note of that. Learning is your personal responsibility. It is your responsibility to set an agenda for learning process. Why? Because the more you learn, the more you equip yourself, the more you build your capacity to enhance your knowledge and able to impact on others. So learning is your personal responsibility. Another statement of fact I want you to take note that there is how approach to everything. There's how approach to how to pilot, how you ride a bicycle, how you drive, and also there's a how approach to learning. So which means that today we're going to look at how do you learn effectively. What are some of the skills that you need to acquire to help you to learn effectively? And these are some of the things we're going to discuss today. So without wasting much time, I've given you two important facts. One, learning is your personal responsibility. Two, there's an how approach to learning. I want you to take note of that, write them down, and ponder over this. It's very, very important that nobody will have to force you to learn, but it is a personal decision you have to make. But the question I'm sure somebody will be asking is, what is learning? What is the essence of learning? Why are we learning? What is learning? Now, I'm going to give you three key points. Learning, first of all, is acquisition of knowledge or skills. Knowledge, skills. Through three key things. One, you can learn, you can study, you can learn through studying. You can also learn through what we call experience. Experience means that you either gain it through an adventure, through a process, through an observation, through something that you have done before, or through a friend that you've engaged in any activities that you've observed, and through that experience you learn. So by studying you learn, by experience you learn. And three, by being taught in the classroom, which is more practical and related to some of those who are watching me live. So there are three key things: study, experience, and being taught. That's the way you learn. Now remember that I said it's a personal experience, it's a personal responsibility, and also there's an how to it. So now we're going to look at some of the tips that how approach to learning effectively. So I want you to take your books, write the points down, and then we'll have a discussion after that. But before that, there are certain practical things that you need to do at home on your own prior to learning. One of the things you need to do well is to eat healthy food, sleep well, and have enough rest. Some research would say 8 to 10 hours, but have a good sleep so that you have enough rest so that you can prepare yourself adequately. You must also get some fresh air when you're learning and you want to just relax. Make sure that at least you can do some exercise, some stretch before you come back. Don't sit up behind the book for 3 hours, 4 hours. No, these are basic practical things you can do. Drink a lot of water. It helps. Drinks a lot of water, gives you a lot of energy, and prepares you for what you want to learn. Now let's go to the tips. Tip number one: set academic goals. Set academic goals. Very, very important. Some of you are learning in school, at home, but you don't have any goals. Goals are your personal guidelines. It helps you to plan effectively. So set academic goals. Academic goals could be simply as, by the end of the term or semester, are we able to cover 10 topics, very specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. Why? Because it's specific. You say by the end of the term. Time bound because you say by the end of the term you should be able to cover what 10 topics, specific. So set academic goals. Write down your goals, what you want to achieve by the end of the term, the end of the semester, what you want to achieve. So set academic goals. Don't just assume that, oh, the term has already opened, we are going to start school. Yeah, no, set your academic goals. That's number one. Number two, do away with all negative perceptions. Negative perception, and develop the can-do spirit. Let me explain why. Perception influences the way we think towards a particular subject, right? Now, there is the general assumption: math is difficult, science is difficult, so people have perception about the subject, and the way you perceive something influences the way you execute towards that subject. So clear all negative perceptions, especially if you have challenge with any particular subject. Have a clear and open mind that you are ready to learn, you are ready to experience, you are ready to study. So clear all negative perception and develop the can-do spirit. The can-do spirit says that, well, I acknowledge that there's a challenge, but I can do it. Then you take the necessary steps, work towards that, and you become a very perfect person in terms of that subject. So clear all negative perception. The 5 senses help us to learn. So if you develop any perception towards a subject, that perception can influence the way you see that subject. So let me give an example. When I was in school, I never liked French because there was a perception I have about French. Oh, it's a difficult subject. Oh, it's boring. So anytime the lecturer comes to class or the teacher comes to class, I already close my mind. There's a perception. There's something called prejudice, right? When you or prejudice, depending on where you're coming from. When you have a prejudice about a particular thing, your notion about the thing is very, very wrong about it. So clear all negative perceptions, number 1. Number 2. Number 3, adopt critical thinking skills. And this part of the tips, I will emphasize on them on my later presentation because it involves some activities. We need to adopt critical thinking skills. Let me give you one example. When you are studying a subject, you need to do some analysis. For instance, you are studying maths. How do you proceed with the calculation? How do you put 1 or 2 together? How do you analyze the question? These are critical thinking skills that you need to develop. It does not take a day to do that. You need to have that particular skills in mind. So we're going to look at 1, set academic goals. 2, do away with all negative perception and develop a can-do spirit. The 3rd point, which is very important, which I will emphasize more in our next submission, is adopt critical thinking skills. Take note of the word thinking skills. Analysis is a thinking skills. Evaluation is a thinking skills. Asking questions is a thinking skills. Because when you do that, it helps you to be able to analyze a particular subject and then put them in perspective. So I'll give you 3 tips. We'll have 2 more, and then we are good to go for today. Also, pay rapt attention during lessons. Listening is also part of the learning process. You know, when you're in class, a lot of people doesn't pay attention because there's so many distractions going on in class. Your peers can be distracting you, yourself, you'll be fidgeting with your pencils, whilst the teacher is paying attention. One of the skills you need to develop is to pay attention. How do you pay attention? By focusing on the tutor or the teacher who is teaching or the facilitator. Because by virtue of paying attention, you're also developing a skill that will help you to understand and appreciate things. So for instance, if I'm presenting and you're doing something else, by the time I'll finish, you will not be able to get any information because you're not paying attention. It is a skill. When somebody is communicating with you, there must be eye-to-eye coordination, and you listen before you respond. So it's a skill you need to learn. It takes time. All these things doesn't take a day. It's a process. Habits take time to change. Some research believe 21 days, others believe 40 days. But whatever it is, when you practice, you become perfect. So the 5th point is use abbreviations. Very, very important, especially if you are learning steps. 5 steps of developing an aeroplane. Those steps can be placed in acronyms or abbreviations, so it can help you to remind you of how you can pick the key points from the steps. So you can use abbreviations. So for instance, I said set academic goals, and I said the goals might be what? SMART. So how do I put an abbreviation? You have SMART. Those are abbreviations or acronyms. So S stands for SMART, M stands for measurable, A stands for achievable, R stands for realistic, T stands for time bound. So use abbreviations or acronyms when learning. So for instance, if they ask you state 5 ways of preparing soup. Okay, these are steps. So what do? You can abbreviate the key points, all right, or put them in acronyms that can help you to remind you of what. And then the last point before we continue, I'm giving 5 tips. I said 10. I'll give you 5 tips today. The next, I'll build on that and give you additional 5, so that at least you can practice the first 5 and keep working on them. So the last point, but not the least, is cultivate the habits of writing down whatever you study. Cultivate the habit of writing down whatever you've learned. Well, how do you cultivate that? By indicating your key points. After reading or studying a particular subject, all the key points you've learned, write them down on your own. It helps you to remind you of what you've learned, and it also helps you to evaluate yourself to know whether you've really learned or not. Because if I've learned 5 steps and I'm not able to write the 5 steps down, it means that there was not proper studying. And remember, there's a passive way of learning. You can be sitting down and assume you are learning, reading the book, but you're not learning. Instead, you can analyze, you think, you underline. Those processes helps you to study effectively. So, students, learners, whoever you call yourself, remember there are 5 key points I've raised today. Learning is a personal responsibility. That's number 1. 2, there's a how approach to learning. That's the skills, the techniques. I've also given you 5 tips. The first one is set academic goals. The second point is ensure that you have a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic time goals for yourself. You pay attention in class. Use abbreviations when learning key steps. Remember, when learning key steps, or when you want to learn certain acronyms, you can use that. The 5th point is cultivate the habit of writing down what you have learned. Now, I'm sure somebody will wonder, what are the things I can do at home? Now, I'm going to give you assignments, a task. Please take note of this task. Start working on it. Hopefully, by our next presentation, I'll ask some of you to share your experience about the things that I've asked you to do, so that we can know whether we are making progress or we are not making progress. One of the tasks I'm going to give to you is make a simple plan or timetable. Make a simple plan or timetable, and I'm going to show you how to do it. There is an app called SQA. If you go to Google Apps on your phone, your mommy's phone, just ask mommy to get your phone. Go to Google's app, look for, type SQA. It's an app. It helps you to plan your schedule. It reminds you of when, what to do, and how to do it. That's all. If you don't have an app, you don't have a phone, assuming that you don't have a phone, what you need is a simple paper and a ruler. Draw a timetable, indicate the days, the hours, the minutes, and don't make your timetable so rigid. Make it flexible. There's time for relaxation, there's time for reading, there's time for watching movies, there's time for studying. And when it's time for studying, make sure you comply with your own timetable and put all distraction stuff aside. Phones, tablets. Some people think that they can learn by watching a movie or playing sound. Please, if it is not part of your maturity level of thinking, don't try it. There are some people who can do it, others may not be able to, but our advice that take away every distractive gadgets that will distract you from learning. So make a simple plan, timetable, lay out your weekly plan, and ensure that you follow it truly. And then the last point is, when you want to learn, ensure that you have a clear mind, relaxed mind, and willing to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that you've learned something today. If there are questions or suggestions, feel free to put out the comments. My name is Jem Aaron. I'm always available. You can share some of the points with us, and we'll discuss. We'll have a fun time. My colleagues will be coming next with other submission. I hope you stay tuned and enjoy yourself. Thank you.